Anyone who attended the curriculum night, both at Liberty and Roosevelt, knows that that's absolutely not true. What is happening is our children who are being subject to an honors test to get them into higher order math, to get them into Algebra 1 and pre-algebra, are having 20% of their longitudinal grades tied to that entry, and then their PARCC scores on top of that. So it is affecting algebra. It's affecting our children's ability to learn pre-algebra and then go on to Algebra 1 and Algebra 2.
The last pre-prepared question will be answered by Mr. Diaz first, and the question is, with our district's budget currently running on a deficit, what sacrifices must be made to balance our budget, and what will be your process to determine if it is a good budget for the system?
Again, for this issue, I come back to accountability. 2 years ago, the district approved funding and partnerships for foundational and corporate grants initiatives. Since that time, the superintendent has not reported 1 cent of applications or proposals that have been submitted for this money. The New Jersey School Boards Association gives us $7,000 per year for grant research. This money has been squandered. For example, in Jersey City, they have received $83,000 in grants at a $4,000 price tag. Our $50,000 annual investment should have yielded already $250,000 to $500,000 in grant money. The goal is in the strategic plan. However, we don't use it. We leave that money on the table. We need to set financial goals for the superintendent and the board, and I am proposing a third-party forensic audit of the district in order to determine where our money is being spent, and then once we determine that, we'll know what to cut.
Thank you. Mr. Alper, the same question.
So first, it's not accurate to say that the budget runs on a deficit. That's actually against the law. You have to have a balanced budget in the state of New Jersey. But I take the spirit of the question. Obviously, we spend a lot of money, and it's your money, and we need to be careful with that. I would look first, roughly 3/4 of our budget goes to 3 places: salary, benefits, and energy costs. Shopping the insurance on an annual basis is a good way to actually attack those costs, because even if you make a little change, insurance is such a big chunk of what we're paying, what the district is paying, that it makes a huge difference. Energy, the district has been doing reverse energy auctions each year to allow energy providers to come in and bid what they're willing to take from the district, which is a good way to save money as well. For the rest of it, I want to sit with John Calavano, the business administrator, and look at that 25% remaining discretionary spending, go through line by line and find places that don't touch the classroom where it would be possible to find some savings out of non-teaching positions, obviously.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Great.
Just wait for our timekeeper.
Please, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we passed a balanced budget, but we passed a balanced budget with hidden costs. And whether the district was aware of that, whether the board members were aware of that, or whether they weren't aware of that, shame on them. Because what we've done now is we have increased taxes in our district by $5 million. And we allegedly cut positions, we allegedly cut back on programs, and we did that in order to supposedly get better health care costs. Yet, despite that, here we are, $5 million greater in our taxes. Thank you.
I actually want to go back and actually agree with the fact that we do need to do a lot more with grants. I think there is some money out there, but we've also seen that folks in the district have tried to work on grants for a number of years. There's been some success. I know that the Italian program in the middle schools was saved through a grant from UNICO, which was terrific. We need to see more of that. I agree wholeheartedly on that front.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the audience-generated questions as soon as I receive them. How's everybody's night?
Sorry.
Excellent. How's yours?
It's okay. I have midterms, so I'm a little stressed out. Okay, so the first question. There's a lot of questions. So the first question to be answered by Mr. Alper is, how would you respond to people who say our schools, particularly middle and high schools are very inferior to those in neighboring districts and similar districts around the state. You have 1 minute to respond.
Well, I'd start by politely but very strongly disagreeing with that. I don't believe that our middle schools and high schools are inferior to any of our neighboring schools. Obviously we have some challenges in West Orange that some of our surrounding towns don't have. Here at the high school, 46% of our students are on free or reduced lunch. Over in Livingston, it's, I believe, 2%. It might actually be 1%. In South Orange, Maplewood, and Montclair, it's right around 20%. So that really impacts everything in a school building and in a system when you're working up from there. Despite that, we have enormous success in this building and in all 3 middle schools and in all 7 elementary schools. And I'm proud of the education my kids are getting and that the district is providing to everyone's kids. We need to strengthen some things, but the depth and breadth of programs that we're offering right here at the high school are amazing, and I challenge surrounding districts to offer the same.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz?
30 seconds.
You have 1 minute to respond to the question.
So by the same token, I would absolutely agree that we are a tremendous school district, and inferior is an insult. And I can tell you that because we have some of the best teachers around in Essex County, some of the best teachers in the state. We have teachers who are motivated, who are compelling, who are driving their students to do work that is beyond the box, outside the box. We need to do a better job, though, with our students' access to test preparation. We have students who do not have access to the same resources that some students have in neighboring districts. We can provide that as a district. We also need to focus on our performance on our standardized tests. While we are stuck with the park, we need to do the best that we can possibly do with helping our students be able to do the best that they can do. We need to focus on real world readiness, next generation science in our elementary schools, coding and STEM from kindergarten straight up through the 12th grade. Thank you.
Mr. Opper, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Thanks. I'm very happy that the district has launched some new STEM initiatives just this year. STEM has started at Edison for 6th graders, which is a great start. I agree with Chris. More test prep would be fantastic. I know we do the SAT boot camp here at the high school that Amy Moore stole from the PTA. That was a big fundraiser for them. But as a result, that's also reduced the cost for parents. I'd love to find more ways for the district to do those sorts of things because, obviously getting as many kids as possible to take the SAT and helping them do as well as possible is critical to our success.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, you have 30 seconds to respond.
So I was actually very happy last year when STEM was provided to my 6th grader. So we actually did get a jump on that. But beginning that in the middle school setting and continuing that up and through high school and ignoring the fact that in some districts, like in Bergen County, we begin STEM and we begin coding in the elementary level is something that we need to take notice of. It's something that we could absolutely bring to West Orange and help our kids get a jump on science so that they are on the same footing as some of our neighboring districts.
That's it for that question. The next question, which will be answered by Mr. Diaz first, is if you were to be elected, what would be your first action for change? Please be specific and how would you go about it? Then they listed, please, specific actions, underline, exclamation point, exclamation point.
So if I'm hearing you right, you want specifics.
Yes, sir.
All right. So it all goes back to my platform. Accountability, improved children's programs, and transparency. So here is one of the first planks of my platform when it comes to accountability. As I said before, our town council is excellent about hiring a grant writer, about that grant writer going and obtaining grant monies for the town. Our school board simply does not do that. Now, we were approaching 75 cents on the dollar with respect to the tax levy in this town when it comes to the schools. We don't want to cut school programs. We don't want to diminish everything that we have here, but there is another way to help pay for it. There is a way to help reduce the burden on the taxpayer, and that is by reaching out for these grants, by hiring a grant writer, because we can do that. There's millions of dollars that are left on the table every year, And that is one very specific example that I can give you in 1 minute about one of the very first things that I would do if I was elected to the Board of Education.
Thank you.
So I think hiring the grant writer is a great idea. I support that. My very first personal action, though, I think our biggest problem in West Orange from the school district is communications. I think that's where we need to start. I would start with 2 things. First, I'd want to schedule town hall meetings to begin as soon as possible to get the whole community in to start providing input on what they'd like to see and what they need from a school district. And as part of that, we'd be changing the tone that I think has been so negative in general. It's, we do too many committees in West Orange and not enough town halls, and I'd like to change that. The other thing I think that we could make some quick change on in communication is start an initiative to fix the website, probably to scrap the website and start with an entirely new website, which I know was just done not that long ago, but maybe we can do it right this year. Have a site that doesn't have, URLs that end with / domain, question mark, and some random numbers. It's not helpful. You can't find anything on it. It's a little frustrating. Thanks.
Thank you. You now each have 30 seconds to respond.
So another huge portion of my platform is transparency. And what I feel we need to do as part of this district is to bring about an understanding of where we fall short to our children who are in the middle, to our children in our underperforming schools, and as a special needs advocate is something that is very near and dear to my heart, to where we fail our special education parents and our students. And last year, and continuing into this year, and I am hopeful that part of what I was saying last year rang true, an audit.
Mr. Albro?
As the parent of 2 children with IEPs, who's lived firsthand through the special ed experience and has generally, thankfully, had fairly good experiences, one thing that I've noticed with my younger child especially, and something that I've heard as I talk to people, is there seems to be a recurring issue, and maybe it's just an anecdote, but I've heard it from multiple people, where you ask for an evaluation, you get told the discrepancy isn't big enough for anything to be done, and you go out and if you're lucky enough to afford your own evaluation, you can get what you were looking for. We need to see the results of the audit quickly to see if that's a recurring problem. Thanks.
Next question. How can a board know if its goals are being accomplished and its policies carried out? Mr. Alper, you have the floor.
So there's actually several types of goals. There are the board goals that it creates for itself, which are actually published on the website, so anybody can go see how the board's doing on that. There's also the superintendent's goals for the district, which get created and similarly are posted. It's really a matter of keeping everybody's feet to the fire. That's, a big part of the board's job, if it's doing its job properly, is accountability. And, obviously it has to be accountable to itself for its own goals, but it needs to hold the superintendent responsible for meeting the administrative goals that he's set for himself.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz?
So the way that we determine whether or not our goals are being accomplished in this district is by taking a look around and getting important and crucial feedback from our teachers, from our students, from our parents. I have proposed conducting a series of climate surveys that would be able to help us obtain information from all stakeholders in West Orange. Now, is the special education program working for everyone? Probably not. And there's a way to find that out through these climate surveys. Are teachers necessarily happy with how they're being treated in this district? Do they feel as though they're getting the proper supports? Do students feel safe in our district? Do they feel as though they're the targets of harassment and intimidation and bullying? These are the ways to find out these important answers. We can find out whether we're hitting our goals by simply asking the stakeholders in West Orange.
Thank you. Mr. Alper, you have 30 seconds.
Depends on the goal, obviously, but absolutely, and I fully support the surveys. As I said at the last board meeting, these surveys would really be more of a focus group, but that's not a bad thing. They're self-selected, they're not necessarily statistically valid and extrapolatable to include the entire community. Sorry, I work in survey research, but they're still very valuable data, and not only can it be used to evaluate how well the board is doing at reaching some of its goals and the district goals, it can also be used to help create goals for the next cycle as we see what people's concerns are. And again, town halls, which I think we also both support, would help with that as well.
Mr. Diaz, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
So when it comes to goals, we also need to be a bit broader. I've proposed also setting financial goals and fiscal goals for both the board and the superintendent. Now, there are programs that the superintendent and the administration have helped create, and whether or not they are effective is going to be a matter of determining what kind of results they've produced. And if we can tie the performance fiscally of our district to the superintendent and the board's goals, then that only serves to help the entire community.
Thank you. The next question. If you had been on the Board of Education last year, how would you have dealt with the low teacher morale as a result of the lack of a contract? Mr. Diaz, you have a minute to respond.
Well, I kind of had the advantage of running for the Board of Education last year during the middle of the teacher's contract dispute. And what I can tell you is this: as an attorney for 20 years, as somebody whose cases run the gambit of million-dollar contracts and helping our students just get a needed service, I can tell you that assuming a combative position never gets you anywhere. Now, I've been a lecturer at Shippensburg University on the topic of getting to yes in negotiation, and what I can tell you is that when you can sit down with each side and determine what is the greater good, what benefits all parties, then you're well on your way to creating a consensus. And that was what was lacking last year. That is, to some degree, still lacking now. We need to continue to build up our teachers, support them, and value them for the services that they provide. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds. I'm sorry, minute.
Okay. Getting to yes is fantastic. I'm not sure if the state mediator who was running the negotiations through most of last year is familiar with it. It doesn't seem like it. It was rough. It was really rough. And it was really, 2 years. And folks feel disrespected when they don't have a contract. And it's not fair. And especially when you're seeing your earnings going down year after year because you're not getting raises and at the same time your insurance premiums or your insurance contributions are going up. Communications, again, is really the issue here. The communications from the district were either non-existent or terrible or unintentionally made people feel even worse. Negotiations are going to take as long as negotiations take, and it was rough everywhere last year with Chapter 78 sunsetting, but we didn't handle it well as a district, I don't think, and it would have been nice to have had more openness, more togetherness. I hate to keep saying town halls, but it wouldn't have hurt. Morale was bad, and we could have done a lot to make people feel better and feel more valued than they did.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds to respond. Mr. Diaz.
It goes without saying that the board last year sat in this room and looked at a room full of teachers and a room full of red shirts and said, "We hear you, we hear you." And then we went another year before anything.